What's up, you beautiful legends? Welcome back to Monty Poker, episode 9. This session is played at Central Coast Casino here in Grover Beach, California. I can't really say that this session was anything special, to be honest. It also felt a little grindy, similar to the last session, but maybe we were just having a dry spell. Either way, we did manage to capture a few good hands, so let's jump into it. Oh, totally forgot. Shout out to Outlaws for this super sick hat. Not only is the action great, but their hats are pretty comfortable too. All right, now let's get into it.
The first hand of the night brings us ace-9 offsuit on the small blind. It was a limp pot. There wasn't a raise going into this, which is why we're involved with this hand. We end up hitting top pair on a board with the backdoor flush draw. Action checks around to player in the middle who leads out for $15 here. The remaining players get out of the way, and when the action gets back to me, I'm going to min click this back on them. We have top pair. There's a lot of cards that could be kind of bad here, but I do want to try to extract some value out of just two face cards, and if an ace hits, obviously our hand gets better. The turn brings a 3 of diamonds. We now have a draw to the nut flush draw here, so I'm going to continue building this pot here, and even if we miss, we can still fire on the river and try to represent the flush. So I lead out for $50 here. Our opponent takes some time to think it over. I've played with this particular villain before, and he knows I like to build up pots for draws, so he's probably thinking it over, debating whether or not it's worth calling here. If he calls the turn, he's going to unfortunately have to call the river unless we somehow put another diamond out there, in which case it might be a little bit more difficult. Fortunately, we miss here. We just have second pair on this board with a busted flush draw, so I fire out for $80, making it really look like we're going for some value with our flush that we hit on the turn. Our opponent asks for a count, and after getting the count, lines up some chips and decides to... what is he doing? Put in the call. That's what we thought. All right, so we show our 9. I don't expect it to be good. And he shows ace-4 for the turned wheel. Well, we definitely weren't getting him off that hand unless we went really big. We just ran into a hand that was most likely not going to fold. This one will be quick. We pick up pocket 7s in middle position. There was a $10 straddle on the button. We end up getting 2 callers in this pot. We whiff the flop, and I don't want to lead out into 2 players. Somebody bets at it, and then the other player calls. So I just go ahead and muck my hand. Don't want to get involved here. Going on to this next hand, we pick up king 10 offsuit in middle position with about 340 in our stack. We end up getting 1 customer, so we're off heads up to the flop, which comes 3 jack 4 with 2 diamonds. Our opponent checks, we check back. 7 of clubs hits the turn. After our opponent checks it over to us, I go ahead and bet, trying to just steal this. He ends up calling, so I'm just going to give up here. Then a 9 of clubs comes on the turn, but after he checks a 3rd time, it doesn't seem like he's going to go for value, so I'm just going to bet at this and see if we can steal it. Maybe he had 2 diamonds and just completely missed here, or maybe he has a tiny pair and was just checking me out, trying to see what we had. But it looks like he's actually grabbing chips, so I'm getting a little bit concerned here because we just have king high. But after looking at his hand one more time, he ends up throwing it away. So I don't know what he had, but we end up scooping a small win finally. The next hand brings us ace 9 of hearts in the cutoff. We have about 383 in the stack after we won that last hand. Nobody has opened yet. Everybody lumped for $3. We get the button to call for 15. Action gets to the middle of the table, and we have 1 more caller for 15, and then a late position player also calls for 15. So we're off 4 ways to a pot of $64. We hit our 9, and this time we have the backdoor flush, so there's enough money in here for me to want to bet a little bit more than last time. We do have top pair, top kicker, so we're gonna go ahead and fire out for $40 here. The button folds. The player in the middle takes a peek, the villain from the last hand, and he ends up putting in the call, which I find very odd because it's about half his stack. I'm not sure why he wouldn't have just gone all in with whatever he has here. He checks in the dark, and then a club hits the turn. This is the most likely hand he probably was chasing, besides maybe, you know, some weird straight draw. He ends up shoving before the river card even gets there for only $40 more. I know I'm beat here. I know I'm beat, but it's $40. And I'm still have top pair on this board. So I'm trying to get myself to fold, but I just can't justify folding for $40 more, even though I know he has a flush. I'm literally grabbing it and about to throw it in, and then I'm just counting what's in the middle and counting what his bet is, and it seems so stupid, just bet sizing wise. But once again, I know I'm beat, so why am I putting it in the middle? There's you know, 4 cards to a straight, 3 cards to a flush. We have top pair, top kicker, but no blockers to either of those holdings. And then our opponent shows 4-6 of clubs. So we were right and we should have folded. Oh well, we lost the minimum at least. Going on to the next one, this is just a funny one. I ended up straddling under the gun for $8 and then we got 3 callers. I end up hitting just a pair of 7s on this board and then I turn a gut shot. So I end up firing at it, get 2 more callers and then one of the players ended up folding and then the river came out a king. I gave up at this point because I didn't hit anything. And then when we got to showdown, my 7 was actually good. This is so weird and it very rarely happens. Next hand, we get the Yama in middle position +1, the unsuited variety. We call Jack 9 the Yama because our homie loves it. It's specifically clubs, but we'll call all variations of Jack 9 the Yama. And for some reason, 9s are just hitting like crazy for me today. So we hit top pair once again today. Let's see how much money we're gonna lose this time. So we decide to fire out here. I'm just gonna go really big and try to take as much money as I can now with my pair of 9s because we've just been getting smoked all day today. But Mr. Club Flush down in the corner here decides that $35 is not enough. He wants to play for all of it. And now I go into the tank. I'm not really sure how many bluffs our opponent has here. He's representing an overpair, ace 9 or a set, all of which I am losing to. So the best thing to do here is just fold. Next hand brings us king queen offsuit. Under the gun we have $263 in our stack and I decide to open here for 15. I would rather be playing this suited from this position, but we haven't really raised too many. Well, we've raised almost all our hands, but we haven't had too many premium hands to really play with. So we decide to open here under the gun. We end up getting this heads up and then we flop top 2. I decide to check because we have 2 of the face cards on this board, so I don't expect our opponent to have this very often. I fire out for 15 on the turn, which is a 10 of hearts. Our opponent puts in the call, then a 10 of clubs on the river. Doesn't really change too much on this board unless our opponent spiked the 10. After leading out for $25 on the river, our opponent asks us how much I have behind. I show him the chips that we have here and just stay quiet. And then he says no bluff and then just throws it away. We end up scooping another small one. Seems like we just keep picking up some weird hands on the blinds that just are block worthy. So we have 5 of diamonds, queen of diamonds here. We end up flopping a top pair on this board here that goes 5 ways. We're in early position, so we just check it over to the opponents. We turn a flush draw along with a top pair here, so I lead out for 10. Our opponent calls for 10 and then the button just shoves. Man, why does this keep happening? Every time we have a piece of it or have something decent, we just get jammed on. I'm not really sure what our opponent has here. I don't think he would do this with the nut flush draw, so I think our pair is probably no good. He could have some 2 pairs here. He could have a pair with an open-ended straight draw, either with 9-10, 8-9. I don't know. I feel like my flush draw is good if it does hit, so I end up putting in the call here. The river comes a 7 of hearts and our opponent shows Jack 9 with the Jack of diamonds here. So unfortunately he had the straight on the turn. If we hit our flush it would have been good, but unfortunately we did not. Some time goes by and we pick up a real starting hand in middle position here. I decide to call the straddle for $6, tending to call any sort of raise if it does come along. Our opponent to our left does indeed raise to 20. There's $80 in this pot here. As we go to the flop, that comes ace deuce jack with 2 clubs. We end up hitting top pair with a decent kicker, but I check it over to our opponent who fires out for $30. We quickly put in the call here and then we go off to the turn, which brings us a 4 of clubs. So now we have a flush draw along with our ace here. I check it one more time. Our opponent checks it back and then another ace hits the river. So now we have trips. I'm going to go for a bet here. The board's kind of scary. I think we missed some value by not raising before or betting the previous street. Our opponent quickly folds and we scoop another one. Immediately after that last hand, we pick up 9-10 of spades under the gun. I go ahead and open to $15, which is the bottom of my range. Don't typically like to open with this hand in this position, but we got to mix it up and keep it spicy for them. Otherwise, we're going to be too predictable. Anyhow, we go to this flop, heads up. up. There's $34 in the middle, and the flop comes out jack to 3, the 2 diamonds. I check it to our opponent, who checks it back. A 9 of diamonds comes on the turn, so I'm gonna go ahead and bluff at this, trying to act like I have diamonds in my hand. So I throw out 20 bucks, and we have the 9 as a backup here, and then our opponent jams on us. Why does this happen every single time we have a 9? I don't know what it is with 9s today, but when we have 9s, we just get into these stupid spots. I should just stop playing 9s for the rest of the night. This is absolutely ridiculous. I'm not gonna call here. There's no way I can call here. I'm just sitting here and thinking about it, making it seem like I have a tough decision when I know damn well that I am not gonna call here, because this would just be an absolutely stupid call. Anyhow, we end up folding here. And yeah, I'm done with 9s today. No more 9s. All right, so next hand, we have 256 in the stack, middle position +1 with ace king offsuit. Nobody has opened prior to us, so I go ahead and raise here after a couple people tried to limp in. We get 1 caller, so we're off heads up to this flop with $44 in the middle. We flop top pair with the nut flush draw. Our opponent checks over to us, and I bet 20. He calls the 20. I look at my cards real quick for some stupid reason. Don't do that when you're playing on the table. It can give away information. Our opponent checks again, so I bet 1 more time, this time for the tune of 35. Our opponent looks at it a little bit, looks at his stack, doesn't have too much left behind. Once again, I am surprised he is not putting it all in, but he does end up making the call here. So we go off to the river, which brings a 7 of diamonds. Our opponent jams, and I snap it off before he even got his chips in the middle. If he had the flush, so be it, but our ace king is good versus his king 10. We got a shout out to Sammy Lusk. We are going to teach you how to play ace jack suited in this hand here. So the first thing you want to do is grab some chips and throw them in the middle when a bunch of other people already put some chips in there, and then they're all going to look at their cards, and then they're just going to throw them away because they're chicken and don't want to play with you because you're the better player. Got it? All right, go clean them out, buddy. Here's lesson number 2 with ace jack suited. We pick this up on the big blind for 350. We have 1 limper in the middle. We have another limper on the small blind. We're going to raise here. I don't want to play this for a tiny amount, so we go $15. The player in the middle, our buddy Jesse, calls, and the small blind also calls. Going off to the flop 3 ways, the board comes out king 5-7. This game is so easy. Just flop the nuts and have someone bet into you. Our buddy Jesse bets $10, so we go ahead and just put in the call here. Not really much we can raise with. The turn comes an 8 of diamonds. I check it over to Jesse again since he was the aggressor on the flop. He ends up firing out for 17. Now, my current game plan is to raise here, obviously. This pot is too small and we need to get some money in the middle. So as I'm reaching out to grab some chips to put in a raise, I was gonna go somewhere to the tune of $40, about a half pot size bet. I hear Jesse mutter something. I don't know why at the time this comment made me think that Jesse was aware of what I was holding in my hand, and it scared me from raising. So I decided to just call. I know this might seem a bit stupid, but I sincerely believe that Jesse knows I have the nuts here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and check it to him one last time here on the river, just forcing him to bet if he has a good enough hand to, because I literally checked it over to him 3 streets in a row. This theory is only further validated when I see how he's shaking his head and just awkwardly throws out a bet of $15 here on the river. I raise to 50, and then this happens.
Raise. I call.
Oh! How do you get? Where's all the pot? How do you guys? You're so good. How are you guys not all in?
I knew he had it. I actually knew he had it like.
You figured you came.
I knew he had it like literally on the flop. I don't know why I kept betting. As soon as he called me, I literally knew he had it. But I kept betting anyway because I didn't want to leave it.
I didn't put him on the queen high flopped flush. It was very unlikely. I thought he had maybe a pair with the redraw to the flush. With the second nuts, there's a good chance Jesse would have had to have called me if I would have shoved at any point or had just repopped him in that hand. But because of our history, I could easily see him folding. Absolutely crazy hand though. I felt like I was playing mental gymnastics with him the whole time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our next hand brings us ace jack. Once again, who would have thought? This time unsuited, but on the button. So there is an open before us in middle position to $15. We go ahead and flick in the call here. No reason not to call, such a small opening size. And then we end up getting 2 more customers. Going off to the flop 4 ways, there's $61 in the middle, and the flop comes out 9 of diamonds, ace of hearts, 3 of spades. We flop top pair. The original pre-flop aggressor leads out for $15. I put in the call and the 2 players in the middle get out of the way. So we end up going heads up to a turn, which comes in 8 of clubs. And then our opponent leads out for 15 again. At this point, I'm smelling something fishy. If this guy had ace king, I feel like he would have fired for a much larger size on the turn, but it's just the bet sizing is screaming value. I feel like he has a set of 9s and he's just roping me along. I end up hitting 2 pair on the river. He bets 25. Normally I'd raise, but like I said, I sincerely feel like he has a set. So we put in the call. Then he turns over pocket aces. I would never expected him to have aces there since I'm holding an ace, maybe ace king or ace 9 or something dumb like that, but ace 9 didn't seem like it was in his range to raise. Aces makes a lot more sense. Wasn't expecting that. Either way, our gut was right and we lost the minimum here. Last hand of the night, I'm just gonna let roll in the background. It's nothing too special here. We just opened with ace queen and then end up folding because we miss everything. Anyhow, the rest of the session went kind of booty. We ended up, you know, kind of floating with this stack amount, and then my camera ended up dying, which annoyed me on top of playing bad and being down a little bit. I stayed way too late this night that I played. I got to a point where I knew I was tilted and I just needed to leave. I ended up playing longer. I felt like I was playing, you know, bad hands and getting into weird spots with hands that I should have just folded or, you know, let go of and not had to make the big bet sizes that I did. So as the night progressed, I just kept trying to force my way through hands. And then there was that hand with Jesse where I had the nuts and I probably could have shoved and gotten potentially called there. So all these things were just kind of going through my head. Losing with ace jack always freaking tilts me for some reason because I just have a bad history with that hand. Anyhow, there was a bunch of factors. I ended up staying really late and losing a bunch more money. So let's go to the outro and see how much we lost this time.
Well, gents and germs, my arch nemesis ace jack showed up quite a bit today, but we actually won one with it. Should there have been more money in that pot? Probably. Unfortunately, I play with Jesse too often and it makes me overthink pots because I know he knows how I play and I know how he plays. So then I just go into this back and forth thing of like, oh, I know he knows that I have it, but I need to make it look like I don't. So I don't know. It's this whole ordeal. Anyhow, I am going to pull out my phone and let's go over the stats as per usual. Why did I cut to this camera? We should have kept it on the other one. All right, so this session is from February 19th and oh man, it's real bad. Bought in for 950, cashed out 200. So this is definitely gonna affect our stats pretty bad. So pulling up the graph, we were at 2159 after last session. Now our bankroll dipped to 1409. That sucks. The last session was really grindy and we didn't make too much. And now this session we took a loss after playing like a little donk. But I've said it once and I'll say it again, that's poker. This is why we do our best to always play when we are at our best mindset. Make sure we rest, make sure we're ready to play. Otherwise, avoid going. Sometimes I really just want to go and play for fun, but I know I'm going to play bad, so I avoid those circumstances. We're not going to win every session as it is, but making sure we're well rested and in the zone definitely increases our chances of making good decisions at the table. And overall, long-term, good decisions are going to make us profitable players. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I appreciate your support. If you made it this far into the video, please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys in the comments. See you next week.